Canada.
Sometimes back into the same communities that they just committed crimes in. Our new law will flip that script by creating new reverse onus bail provisions for violent and organized crime-related offenses. We're making bail stricter to keep you safe. With so-called reverse onus bail, it will no longer be up to the Crown to prove why someone should stay behind bars. It will be up to the accused to prove to the court.
This is Canada. Maple syrup and like cabinet. Kick your ass all lucky season, mountains be riding horses, yeah, this is Canada. Moose live up in our zone. We got the best weed ever grown. We got the best bacon ever known. From Toronto to Vancouver, Montreal to Regina. We keep it cool, we keep it chill. In the Great White North,
Simply put,
it's real.
These changes will keep violent, repeat offenders of these crimes off our streets and out of our communities. Canada's new government will also toughen sentences for repeat offenders of auto theft, of organized crime, and of home invasion, so that criminals who have repeatedly victimized your community do not have the chance to do so again. We are delivering the change to keep violent repeat offenders off our streets. We'll also allow for consecutive sentencing for violent and repeat offenders, so that a 7-year sentence and a 5-year sentence can mean 12 years behind bars, not just 7. This change will keep dangerous criminals off our streets for longer. And to protect workers and businesses, we will implement harsher sentencing for organized retail theft. No worker in a neighborhood convenience store should have to worry about being robbed by gangs or feeling that no one can intervene and no one will face justice. In addition, we will reverse laws from previous governments that are simply not working. And the first of those is conditional sentences for sexual assault. Right now, someone convicted of sexual assault can be eligible for a conditional sentence, meaning they may be able to serve their sentence at home, in the very community where their victim lives. That is not justice. Our legislation will put an end to this. If you commit sexual assault, you will serve your sentence in a correctional facility. La violence sexuelle constitue un crime grave qui a eu des répercussions majeures et profondes
repercussions on the victims' lives. Victims of sexual assault should never have to cross their aggressor in everyday life, whether it be at the grocery store, the workplace, or elsewhere in their community. That is why our government will make sure that sexual assault, people who commit sexual assault will be imprisoned and not have conditional sentencing.
Election commitment to hire 1,000 new RCMP personnel across Canada. Because tougher laws are only one part of safer communities. We also need the people and the resources to enforce those laws. With this significant investment, the RCMP will have the investigative and technical capabilities required to work actively with municipal and provincial police services, such as on critical national security issues, including foreign interference, violent extremism, cybercrime, organized crime, and online child sexual exploitation. This funding will also include hiring 150 RCMP personnel specifically dedicated to investigating financial crimes, targeting money laundering networks, organized crime, online fraud, and the recovery of illicit assets. Financial crimes take many forms, and they are rising with devastating impacts on millions of Canadians. Retired Canadians who spent a lifetime saving carefully are losing thousands of dollars in seconds, sometimes just for answering a call from the wrong person. Plus de ressources pour les GRC.
Additional resources for the RCMP. Increased protection for Canadians.
These new measures will keep violent criminals and repeat offenders off our streets. They will protect the people we love, and they will deliver the justice that Canadians deserve. You know, earlier I spoke about the two lessons that Canadians have learned from the past year. First, that we must focus on what we control, and second, that we have to look out for ourselves. But there's a third lesson. We have to take care of each other. And that means empowering everyone in our country to have opportunities to get ahead. It also means taking care of each other. And that means making our communities truly safe by tackling the root causes of crime. Par des investissements dans la santé mentale,
Through investments in
le
mental health,
traitement des dépendances,
addictions
de
treatment,
logements abordables
affordable
et de programmes
housing,
destinés aux jeunes à risque.
and at-risk
Ce genre
youth programs.
d'investissement permet
These type
de
of
briser le
investments
cycle de la
allow us to
violence
break
et
the cycle
d'aider les
of
gens à
violence
trouver
and to help
leur
people
voie.
to find their way in life.
We are building communities across Canada. Communities with homes that people can actually afford. Providing services people need to help break the cycles of poverty and violence, and the support for those needed the most. Earlier this week, not far from here, we announced the first project within the GTA of our new federal housing entity, Build Canada Homes, in Downsview. This development will start by delivering 540 factory-built housing units, with at least 40% of those being deeply affordable. And ultimately, it will catalyze the construction of over 63,000 new homes in the Downsview area. Et en ce moment, à Kananaskis, en Alberta,
Right now, in Kananaskis, Alberta, the Attorney General of Canada, Ministers of Justice and Public Safety are meeting in order to work on this and to trace the road ahead. This work will be done in partnership with provinces, territories, municipalities, and local law authorities. Because to be efficient, a solution must reflect the reality of communities we are serving.
So let me conclude. The world is more dangerous and it's divided. It's changing rapidly. We can't control those forces outside our borders. But in Canada, we decide what happens here. And we're choosing to build stronger communities where Canadians can feel safe in their homes, safe in their neighborhoods, and in control of their futures. We're fixing ineffective policies from the past and building a stronger, safer future with tough new laws, big new resources, and practical solutions. We will bring in tougher sentences for violent and repeat offenders and invest in thousands of frontline officers to combat crime in all of its forms. We'll secure our border and protect our sovereignty. We will protect our communities and our way of life. We'll protect your safety and the people you love. And we will build Canada strong. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions. On va faire une question par journaliste. One question per journalist. First question. Première question.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Hello. Hello.
Avec ce durcissement en matière de
With this
criminalité, vous rejetez une
hardening,
fois de plus une partie de l'héritage
you
du
are
gouvernement Trudeau.
rejecting part of the legacy of the Trudeau government. Is this an admission that Trudeau's have been too lax in the past few years? Thank you for your question. We have to learn lessons on what's happening in our communities and on the ground. We're working closely with police forces, and yes, of course, we're learning lessons. And we're learning lessons with regards to reverse onus bail in the situation of bail. So we're learning lessons, and then we're taking action. We're making difficult but necessary decisions.
In English.
The question, we work closely with law enforcement, with municipalities, with provinces, and we take the lessons from what's happening in the streets, in our communities, in our cities, and we're making changes. So yes, there are things that are being changed from measures that previous governments had put in place, but that's the right thing to protect Canadians, and we will continue to do that.
Next question.
Les mesures proposées font en sorte que
So
des
these
criminels vont
measures
rester plus longtemps
ensure that criminals will be imprisoned for a longer time in provincial jails. So will new resources be provided so that provinces are able to manage this population? First of all, we need to work jointly with the provinces. There are provincial responsibilities with regards to law enforcement, and also they have to provide prisons. I will meet with the Premier of Ontario later today, and we're going to talk about reform. The reforms that I've just announced, and also the implications for the province and also for provincial resources.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Laura Stone, Globe and Mail. I want to ask about the case of jailed publisher Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong. You've been remarkably silent on this issue. We've heard from Keir Starmer calling for his release, President Trump calling for his release. Why have we not heard anything from you, and will you be granting him honorary Canadian citizenship or even following through with his application for full Canadian citizenship?
Look, we support the freedom of the press, and we would urge the release of Mr. Lai. With respect to citizenship, we have processes to become Canadian citizenship. I'm making the point on humanitarian grounds and our support for, as I say, support for freedom of the press, including in Hong Kong. We first and foremost take responsibility for the citizens of Canada and the residents of Canada. Thank you.
Next question.
Kevin Gallagher with Global News. Prime Minister, you're meeting with Premier Ford later this afternoon. He's already come out and said he'd like to see you hit back, retaliate against new U.S. tariffs. So what's your message to him this afternoon? And does it include a new package of retaliatory action and trade action against the Trump administration?
Well, Premier Ford and I are both interested in results for, in my case, for workers and families across Canada. Of course, in his case, for the province of Ontario. And we're looking to work to those ends as constructively as possible. Right now, with the Americans, we're engaged in deep negotiations, intensive negotiations on several sectors of the Canadian economy: energy, aluminum, and the steel sector. The steel sector, it's across Canada, but the bulk of the steel sector is right here in Ontario. And we want to make progress in those negotiations. I'll be briefing the Premier on the status of those negotiations. We'll also be discussing the auto sector, the forestry sector, other parts of manufacturing, and what will make the biggest difference, not just to those sectors, but to all of Ontario, all of Canada, which is where we end up with the review, following the review of the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement, which is coming very shortly. So the strategy has to take all of that into account and deliver the results. Now, last point. We start from a position where we have a better deal than any other country in the world with the United States. 85% of our trade is free, with the exception of Mexico, which has significant free trade with the United States. The deals the Americans have signed with everyone else has tariffs on the core of the trade, and then higher tariffs on the strategic sectors. So we're starting from this stronger position. But we're also very acutely aware and very focused on the fact that we can make it better. And so we will do everything we can to make it better. There's times to hit back and there's times to talk, and right now is the time to talk. En français, c'est le moment d'avoir des discussions.
This is the time to talk. We're having intense negotiations with regards to the steel and aluminum sectors, as well as the energy sector. And what will be the most important thing is that these negotiations will be hugely important for the province of Ontario and all of Canada. The most important thing will be the review of CUSMA, the Canada-US-Mexico Trade Agreement.
Minister Megan Fitzpatrick from CBC News. This is actually a question for Commissioner Duhem, if that's okay.
Okay, he's very capable, yes. Would you like me to step aside? Yeah, there you go.
Sorry,
sir. I'll just...
This is a question on behalf of my colleagues in our Parliament Hill Bureau. Commissioner, in a recent interview, the Leader of the Opposition called the leadership of the RCMP despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government and accused your officers of covering up for former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the SNC-Lavalin affair. What's your response to Pierre Poilievre's comments, and have you ever faced political pressure from the government to not pursue charges?
So I think we've talked about SNC-Lavalin quite a lot under the previous government, and I think it was clear that there's no interference. I don't take any orders from any political individual. And as far as his comment with regards to senior management, I would invite Mr. Poilievre to meet with us and to meet with the people who run this great organization, 32,000 strong. So.
Next question.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Barbara with iPolitics. Just passing along a question from my editor, Marco Vigliotti. So Stellantis threatened to pull out of the Nexstar project in Windsor back in 2023 because the U.S. passed legislation allowing for even more generous subsidies. I understand you were not Prime Minister then, but it seems like these contracts are not terribly binding on the automakers.
No.
So is it a mistake to broker deals promising billions to companies to build here, knowing that experience suggests that they can just flee or demand more cash without much in the way of consequences?
Okay, well, first off, I know you're passing on a question. You can pass on this answer back to your editor. That's not a fair, an accurate description of the contract that the federal government signed with Stellantis and their partner LG. There are undertakings in that contract for the Nexstar battery that relate not just to the completion of that, but to the undertakings here in Brampton, not far from here. So there is exposure of the company if they were not to follow through with those commitments for Brampton, restarting Brampton, the employment in Brampton, related commitments to their Windsor activities. Let me say, so the premise of your question is categorically wrong with respect to the federal government, full stop. But let me also add that I spoke with the global head of Stellantis 2 days ago. In advance of the announcement, just in advance of the announcement, I expressed disappointment on their decision to shift where the Jeep production was. I reminded the global CEO of those undertakings and that partnership that's been there. I received assurances from the global CEO of two things. One, that they're looking at different model being produced in Brampton. That decision would be taken in the context of the finalization of the USMCA, to use the American term, CUSMA, to use our term, negotiations, and as well that support would be provided for workers. We're working with them, we're working with Unifor, working with the province to ensure that those workers for Brampton have more than just the opportunity, and they do have the opportunity to move to the additional shift that is being put on at Stellantis' other facility. But because there's 1,500 jobs coming with that third shift there, but also that they have comparable support to what they receive at present while the Brampton factory is idle. So. En français, ce qui concerne les engagements
with regards to the Stellantis commitments
l'accord du Nexstar,
in the Nexstar agreement, Everything is very clear. This includes commitments with regards to the work and also the Brampton factory. Secondly, I had a long discussion with the CEO of Stellantis, the global CEO of Stellantis, Tuesday afternoon before the announcement, and he provided assurances with regards to the options for the Brampton plant, other options for the Brampton plant. We had a discussion on the options for workers in Brampton. There are two options right now. One would be to work at another plant, another Stellantis plant, and the second, that we would work with Stellantis and Unifor, the union, as well as the province of Ontario, in order to ensure that support for workers remains the same as it is right now, prior to the announcement by Stellantis.
Hurst, CTV News. China's ambassador to Canada has said that if you lift the EV tariffs, China will lift its canola oil tariffs. Will you, or canola tariffs? Will you, yes or no? And China is clearly exploiting the canola sector's reliance on its export market. Wouldn't it be naive to expand the trade relationship with that country, given that?
Well, there's a lot packed into that question, but let me take the last bit and build out from it, which is that we get a lesson from the trade actions of the United States over the last this year. Trade actions such as the canola tariffs that you just referenced, the danger of overdependence on single trade partners, first point. The second is that in those contexts, we have to look for alignment of incentives and interests as much as possible. That's where it's possible and responsible and fair to workers and fair to our future to have deeper relationships. And that's part of what we're doing with the United States, is Canada determining where can we trust the United States through ups and downs, and in what areas can we do that, and where should we have that exposure. It's a similar process with China. We are restarting broad engagement with China. I'll make a point. I met the Prime Minister, the Premier of China, a few weeks ago. That was the first meeting between the head of the Canadian government and a senior, either the Premier or the President, in 7 years of China. This is our second largest trading partner. And so when you have that, and there's reasons for that, but when you have that situation, you end up with these dependencies and these exposures. So to get back to the first part of your question, we have a broader trading relationship with China. There are different levers that we have, or opportunities that we have for China in Canada. We are in the process of having those discussions on a much broader range of issues than single sectors and single trades. And when we look at the auto sector, we take into account the dynamics with the United States, the ongoing negotiations there, and what the potential impact is. So, last point. I met the Prime Minister, the Chinese Prime Minister, a few weeks ago. Our Foreign Minister, Minister Anand, is arriving in Beijing basically as we speak, and will be meeting with her counterparts. And I expect to meet the senior Chinese leadership in the coming month or so, and we'll continue those discussions, and we'll see where the trade relationship evolves. Thank you.
Next question.
Yes or no? Are you considering it then, lifting the EVs? Like that's
look, I gave you a proper comprehensive answer to that, and it's naive to take a relationship that is broader and can broaden and to boil it down to two things that go across. There's a deeper set of conversations that are going on, it's not that simple. nor is the relationship in the auto sector that simple as just open a door here with China with no impact on the relationship with the United States and the impact on activity here in Canada.
Next question.
Hi, Monique Malima, Bloomberg News. Bank of Montreal CEO Darryl White said yesterday that Canada's tax system is absolutely not competitive. Do you agree with this, and why or why not?
I disagree with it, and it'll be clear in the budget the competitiveness of the Canadian tax system, including relative to the United States for investment. This is a budget that is going to support generational investment in Canada, scale of investment we haven't seen for decades, and that will include a highly competitive corporate tax system. There is a difference in terms of the choices that Canadians have made consistently over time in terms of the personal tax system and the balance of the social model in Canada, the support we give to each other, and you know, broad brush, that aspect of our tax system will continue. But in terms of corporate competitiveness, look, this is a government that cut the capital gains tax in the first week of the government. We're well aware of what the relative effectiveness, relative tax rates are in investment, and we'll make sure that they are competitive in the budget.
Next question.
Hi, Taranjit from Red FM. Some people have expressed concerns that individuals from different countries who are on asylum or are on different visa programs and are committing serious crimes in Canada are not deported quickly. Is the deportation process for such case being expedited, or are there plans to make it faster?
The short answer is yes, there are plans to make it faster, make it better resourced, and to improve the tracking. That's part of a broader set of reforms that we're making to the immigration system here in Canada. But thank you for the question. Yeah.
Hello, Prime Minister. Mark Ramsey with the Toronto Star. How confident are you that the criminal code measures that you're announcing today won't be struck down by courts? For example, the Supreme Court in 2022 ruled against consecutive sentencing for murder, saying that it violated the Charter right against cruel and unusual punishment. And what would you do if the courts go against these new laws? Well,
let me answer the second part first. We will follow the courts. We will follow Supreme Court rulings. This is a government that believes in the rule of law and will fundamentally defend the rights and liberties of Canadians. That's the fundamental point. But the second point I want to go to, which is the measures we're announcing today, I'm announcing today, and the Attorney General, Minister of Justice will table in the House within the next week. They are the part of a process of very careful deliberation. We want to toughen bail, we want to reverse onus, we want to get end conditional sentencing, for example, in sexual assault, all the things that I listed, and including consecutive sentencing, the possibility of consecutive sentencing in certain cases. Okay. We have done that in close collaboration with the provinces and territories. There have been a series of discussions amongst the equivalents of the Minister of Justice. They're called different things in the provinces sometimes, across the provinces and the federal government over the course of several months, with law enforcement, with stakeholders, with other groups, with constitutional experts. And this is part of the difference, for example, of a proposal that was made by the Conservative government a few weeks ago, which did not benefit from any of that, introduced a number of measures that nobody, or the core of law enforcement, the core of provinces, others, did not ask for, would not be, in our judgment, in many cases, withstand constitutional scrutiny. So this is a package that we expect that does what it's supposed to do. It toughens the rules, punishes criminals, it'll help keep us safe, but also is consistent with the charters of rights and freedoms of this country. So we're very confident the package gets the right balance and does what's necessary. But of course, as a fundamental point on anything, not whether it's what I'm announcing today, what we do 6 months, or what had been done previously, if there's a judgment of the Supreme Court that something is illegal, you follow it. You take. This is Canada. It's a country of the rule of law. Okay.
We'll do one
Thanks.
last question. We've got 2 minutes. Sorry, we've just got 2
okay.
minutes. We've got to go quickly. Last question.
Rhianna Lim with the Canadian Press. What is Canada's plan to increase trade with the Middle East?
Thank you. It's I'm going to take a broad interpretation of that question first, which is that one of the things that has been very apparent is there's a strong interest in countries throughout the Middle East, but particularly in the Gulf, for greater trade and investment in Canada. And these are some of the bigger investors and expertise, for example, in infrastructure investment, so they can be partners for Canada. So there's opportunities there. For example, the Minister of Artificial Intelligence just signed a MOU in the UAE with the Minister of Infrastructure there about inbound investment there. And I'll be traveling to the UAE on the way to the G20. So that's one example. More broadly across the Middle East, we have relationships. They can be deepened further. I would say in the specifics of Middle East with respect to Palestine, our focus is on supporting a peace process which has just begun, a very welcome development, of course, but much needs to be done. And on Thanksgiving, I participated in the Peace Summit, had a series of discussions with partners in the Middle East, so all the regional players in the Middle East, about the role Canada can play alongside our G7 partners to help promote that peace. So peace before trade in the specifics there, but then more broadly in the Middle East, intense interest, and I expect to see substantial increases in activity there.
Thank you. This was an inter-press conference. C'est ce qui met fin à notre conférence de presse. Thank you.
That was the Prime Minister speaking in Toronto, announcing new measures to combat crime in the form of new legislation to be announced next week. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But also, as you heard, Carney took a lot of questions about trade, in particular surrounding that